Thank you, Josh. That's absolutely awesome. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm so excited Joshua is on board with this and presenting. I think he gave you a ton of wonderful information. If you don't already have a whole page of notes, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on in DMS, and I'm thrilled that you're here as well. So today we're talking about celebrating ownership of music. You may be wondering, what the heck does that mean? What does that look like? Well, music doesn't just happen. All right, it doesn't just exist. People actually need to do something. I had one of my followers a long time ago, Xenophon Kelsey. Beautiful name, starts with an X, Xenophon Kelsey. He actually wrote to me that music should be something that people do. And I couldn't agree more with Xenophon. That is an absolute truth. That music doesn't happen on its own. People need to do music. And it works both ways. We've already explored this in previous episodes. If you haven't looked at those, you can check back and have a look. But we've got music requires two people, at least two people. It requires the performer and the listener. And we're not just talking about hearing, we're talking about listening. So that's how music works, but it requires somebody to actually do the performance, and it requires somebody to actually do the listening. That's where music lives. And when I say that we're celebrating ownership of music, it means that whoever is doing the doing part, whoever's doing the performing, whoever's doing the listening, they almost like have a responsibility to own their role in what's going on. Now, when you have a whole room full of people performing and a whole room full of people listening, that's even better. That's even more exciting. But that means there are hundreds of individual pieces of ownership going on, pieces of communication back and forth. It is an active thing, music. It doesn't just happen. We own it. We own our role, our part, however big, however small it might be. So there are some things that I wanted to cover today about what that looks like. Three things. The interesting perspective I think that we come to this with about owning our role in music is what Jocko Willink said. Jocko, if you're not familiar, he is a former Navy SEAL who's a bit of a motivational speaker. And he said that the only thing that you can control is you. That's the only thing that you can control, is just you and what you do. So it doesn't really matter what else is going on around you. We choose how we respond. We choose how we react. We choose what we actually do. And when it comes to music making and sharing music, be it as a listener or as a performer, all we can do is control the elements that we actually bring to this. So let's talk about what that ownership of music looks like, and then ways that we can actually celebrate it, because I think that's very important. We often seem to forget that part of it. So the first thing is that we all have some sort of an individual contribution to music making. We all contribute something. We bring something to the table. We do something. We're either listening or performing when music occurs. So the first thing to do, basically, once for our own individual contribution to music, is to actually have a go. To just try it. Just do something. We get very nervous about our image and what we look like and what we sound like, and whether or not we like this music, and whether we're wearing the right materials, whether we're clapping in the right place, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, that gets in the way of music making, of us sharing this language of emotion. So my recommendation is just have a go. Try something new, try something different, or go back to the familiar stuff in your comfort zone. Doesn't really matter. Just have a go. Just do something. Once you're there, though, something that you can control towards owning that experience is to do it right. Is to actually get your role and take ownership of it so that it happens as it should. Meaning, if you're performing, you've probably rehearsed it. Hopefully you've practiced it as well, so you can get it as good as you can. Whatever right looks like for you, getting it correct looks like for you, that's worth the energy and effort to do that. Same in the audience. If you're turning up to a concert to listen and participate and be part of this conversation of music that's going on, you do have that role. And there are ways to do that right, which is listen, not just hear. That's the basic, most fundamental part, and we've discussed this many times before. I hope you get tired of hearing me say listening versus hearing, because it's an important thing that we're losing in society, is the ability to listen. So if you have any questions about listening versus hearing and what I'm talking about, put those in the comments, send us an email, and we can explore that offline, because I'll send you to some resources and other times when we've explored that. But whatever part you're playing in music making, be it performing or listening, do it right. Have a go and do it right. Because when you do that, you'll realize, you'll understand, you'll appreciate that music itself isn't necessary. It's very personal, but it's actually not about you. Very controversial, okay? Particularly in the classical music world, which I grew up in. The performer particularly has a tendency to make their performance about themselves, about how skilled they are, about how wonderful they are. Audiences also make it about themselves, particularly in social environments when they turn up in the right dress, the right attire, they speak to the right people, that kind of stuff. It's just something that we do. We make it about ourselves. We put on a show. Whereas if you do it right, if you have a go, you do it right, you're listening, not just hearing, you're sharing your music, you're not just putting on a show, then it becomes less about you as an individual, even though you are individually contributing to what's going on. It becomes about the other people out there. The performer starts thinking more about how's it coming across to the audience, what are they getting out of it. The audience then start receiving that, and if they're listening, they start feeding back their response to the performers, and it becomes about the performers from the listener's point of view. Very interesting, very, very deep, very intellectual perhaps, but the reason we think about things this way is to get to the heart, get to actually the deep parts of music making. So that's the individual contribution. That's your role. Whatever you're doing, you can control how you respond, how you react, and how you do things. So have a go, do it right, and just remember it's not about you. Now, the second thing about owning music, the celebration of ownership of music, is the group contribution. The contribution by a group of people. That's the people around you who are, again, either performing and or listening. Now, one of the most exciting things that I loved about music, and I still enjoy in many musical environments, it doesn't happen everywhere anymore, and it's very, very sad, particularly in the online environment. When we are online, we seem to have this persona that we put across that isn't always encouraging. And that's what I miss. Particularly when, in the last few months when we've not been able to meet in person, but in a lot of musical circles, we've forgotten how to encourage each other. And when we do that, that's our contribution. We encourage other performers to have a go, to do it right, and to share their music with their circles of influence. Performers encourage the audience to have a go, to listen instead of hear, and to share that experience with other people. Audiences do the same thing for performers and for their circles of influence. It's that we encourage each other. That encouragement is so important all the time. In music making, we're talking about the language of emotions. You don't want to mess with emotions if you don't have to. So you know what? Encouragement is something that really contributes to that in the group. The second thing that group contribution does is that you become part of something bigger. I love this. I absolutely love this. In fact, this is one of the values of the Dunedin Music Society, is to contribute to something bigger than what we think we're doing. And if I remember rightly, it says contribute to something bigger. No, bigger than that. It's funny how we phrase it, and it's available on our website. That when the group contributes to music making, performers, audience, together, society, whatever it is that the group is, we are contributing to something bigger than ourselves, and that is so exciting. That is worth encouraging, making our world a better place to live through live music. The groups encourage each other to do that. That's something that the group can own and share with other people and contribute to music making, is to be a part of something bigger deliberately. Because the energy that is produced, particularly from audiences. Now, audiences tend, this is generalization, a stereotype if you like, tend to be very passive. They tend to think that they are just there to sit and be entertained. And actually, that's not what happens in reality. If you're an audience member and you go to a lot of concerts, number one, thank you. Number two, keep going, whatever happens. And number three, bring your friends with you. But the number four is every moment that you're sitting there listening, not just hearing, but actually listening, you are giving feedback to the performers. There is a two-way conversation going on. And we pick that up. Even if you turn yourself off mentally and you are not listening, you're now just hearing the music, it's just background stuff, we pick that up. And if you're in a less formal environment where there is a lot more interaction between the performers and the audiences, something like the Dunedin Concert Band does, you may notice there are times when something happens on stage, usually some sort of joke or speech or something, which seems to come out the blue. And that's because we actually want to draw people back in. We kind of, I don't know if you've heard the phrase, musicians may have heard this phrase, that you need to engage the audience. I disagree with that personally. My thing is that if you need to engage the audience in what's going on, you've already lost them. So don't lose them in the first place. So this whole contribution of the group, of the audience as a whole, produces an energy that the performers pick up on. That makes the performance better. If you want a really good performance as an audience member, pay attention, listen, and just give that feedback, that energy to the performers, because I can put my hand on my heart and tell you 100% the performers will pick it up, and the whole level of that performance will change and rise. It's like a rising tide. If we're all boats on a tide and the tide comes in, all the boats rise together, right? There's very rarely a boat that sinks when the tide comes in, unless it's tied down. So let's do that. Let's encourage each other as a group. Let's be part of something bigger than just what's going on in our world right now individually, and feed that energy to each other. The third thing about owning music that I really want to share with you is about how we celebrate. and celebrating what we own, the parts that we can contribute to as an individual and as part of a group, is our perspective. We get to choose our perspective. I'm reminded of that wonderful movie Dead Poets Society with Robin Williams, when a few months into the school semester, he's teaching a class, and he wants them to realize that not everything is the way they see it. So he does his exercise where he gets each kid to come and stand on the teacher's desk at the front of the classroom and look around the classroom. Why? Because it's the same space, it's the same people, it's something they're very familiar with, but they're now looking at it from a different perspective. And for the first few kids, that really opens their eyes. The last few, they just kind of jump off and, whatever. They don't take it seriously, and that's very sad. But they were making a really good point that we get to choose our perspective on what's going on the performers, on the audience, on the music that we're listening to, and vice versa. So you can choose whether or not to focus on those little tiny details that weren't perfect. And that often happens. Performers particularly are terrible at focusing on the mistakes. We instead of just identifying errors and learning from that and not doing them again, They obsess about them and they focus on that. And they choose that perspective instead of choosing the fact that they just played a whole bunch right. They focus on the 3 wrong things instead of the 30,000 notes that they did right. And that's very, very sad. I recommend, encourage people, audiences and performers alike, to choose your perspective. Choose what does go right. Choose what works. Choose what affected you. Focus on that. Recognize the things that go wrong. Okay, so this little passage was out of tune. Okay, that passage wasn't strictly together. You know what? We're humans. Things happen. The rest of that piece was fabulous. It was incredible. It made the hairs on my arms stand up, all sorts of things. So we choose our perspective. We can also choose to recognize accomplishment when we have done something well. Often, one reason I think a lot of performers choose to focus on the negative is because they spend decades in their music lessons with their teachers and adjudicators and audition panels and whatever, and their peers, their competition, picking up on all those mistakes. And because we don't recognize the 30,000 things that we do right, we actually don't recognize we've accomplished something. Okay, it may not be perfect, and we have an example of that with one of our groups, the Dunedin Concert Band. We recently did last October the Lord of the Rings Symphony. It was a 45-minute piece of music. Absolutely amazing accomplishment. Was it the most perfect thing on the planet? No, it wasn't. I would say it was probably a little bit below average for what I would expect that piece to sound like. But you know what? We did it. We got out there. We tried it. We worked darn hard at it, and we accomplished it. Oh my goodness. Nobody can ever take that away from you. You've now played that piece of music. If you're in the audience, you've now heard that piece of music. You don't hear it very often because it's a very challenging piece of music. So recognize that accomplishment. And then what you can do is you can actually demonstrate your appreciation for people having a go, for people trying to do it right, for the fact that they want to share it with you, because it's not about you. They are making this about somebody other than themselves. The group itself is encouraging you to participate in this thing so that you can encourage other people, your circles of influence, to participate, because we're all part of something bigger. And that energy is so positive. It is so encouraging. I don't want to get all woo-woo and fancy and say it was all the positive, whatever. Yeah. It's so exciting when you recognize accomplishment and you show your gratitude for it. You show appreciation for people having to go, for even doing this in the first place. If you want to turn up to a concert as a performer or as an audience member and there is something out of place, sure, you can ask for help to try and put that thing back in place. But if you're going to stand there and complain about it, then you are absolutely taken away. You are making it all about you, your contribution, what the part of your role that you are owning in this performance is now distracting. It is taken away from the accomplishment and the efforts of all those other people. I'm not saying don't complain. As I said, if there is something out of place that's not quite right that you need help with, then ask for the help. But if you just moan and groan and complain, you are taken away from the music that people have worked darn hard to share with you, and the other people around you in the audience have chosen to share with their circles of influence, because we're all part of something bigger. We all want to make our world a better place. So I hope that makes sense. We celebrate ownership of music. We need to do something. Music doesn't just happen. And when we do something in music, that means we have an individual contribution, we have a group contribution, and we choose how we respond. We choose our perspective. We choose how we're going to look at this. So I'm really looking forward to looking at your questions and your comments on Facebook. If you're watching on the website, I'm sorry that we don't have the chat facility available. Maybe next time you can jump over to the website and have a look there. But you know, I hope this helps. I'd love to know what you think about this particular topic, about taking ownership of your role in music making and celebrating it, because that would be awesome.